I completed a world record speed run with Pokemon Red 721. For those of you who don't know, Red 721 is a version of Pokemon Red that includes all the Pokemon, typings, and attacks all the way up to X and Y version. This way, I still got the experience of Pokemon Red version, but with a lot more variety than what you'd see in a typical speedrun. Plus, all the Pokemon and items were completely randomized, which meant that this game would depend on adaptation more than just rote memorization. I started off the way you typically do in speedruns. I named both myself and my rival A to save time during text, which made me realize a very unique problem I'd run into later. I got my item out of the PC, which thankfully turned out to be a rare candy, and I took a look at what my starter Pokemon options were. They turned out to be Clefairy, Swinub, and Zubat, all of which were kinda disappointing. I wanted to use Clefairy, but the randomizer was set to give me 3-stage basic Pokemon, and it messed up thinking that Clefairy was the base evolution, so I ended up going with Zubat for right now, which absolutely handled Gary's Reuniclus, by the way. After that, the speedrun would get a lot less formulaic. I originally wanted to get a bunch of different Pokemon so that way I could grind them all in the beginning and have a diverse team to choose from later. I also really wanted a Rhyperior that I found on Route 2, but after almost 30 minutes had passed, I realized that I just needed to battle Brock. My team was a Zubat, Sawsbuck, and Heracross. Only one of them would make it to the mid-game with me. Luckily for me though, Brock's Pokemon would only be a Patrat and a Gorbis, which meant that the entire battle took less than 2 minutes. After beating Brock, I take care of the usual tasks. Get through the trainers on Route 3, get through Mount Moon, defeat my rival, and start making my way to Bill's house. I also got an Inkay, Floette, and Durant during this time, but they really didn't do anything other than waste time and take up space. Actually, the biggest time waster in this run so far has been trying to catch Pokemon when most of the ones that I did manage to catch didn't actually do anything for me. Fortunately though, my Heracross at this point has Night Slash, Bullet Seed, Aerial Ace, and Fury Attack, which is going to be extremely useful for the rest of this run. But at the same time, I notice when I'm at Bill's house that I've already fallen behind. As you can probably tell, I'm mostly solo running this game with Heracross at this point, and while he's absolutely fantastic as a Pokemon, I started to realize that he was taking forever to gain levels. And as it so turns out, Heracross is in the category for the slowest leveling up in the game, which means that while I'll be able to handle some really tough opponents, I'm not just going to be able to speed my way through every trainer battle. Plus, there was one more extremely niche problem that I was running into that I just hadn't noticed yet, but we'll get into that more later. Misty turned out to be no problem. After a Bullet Seed to her Carbink and a Night Slash to her Bannet, I was on my way to Vermilion City. But I also noticed one thing that would give me hope in my run again. No way! I got the fresh water! I got the fresh water! Let's go! Being able to skip Rock Tunnel was absolutely huge, especially this early in the game. In fact, I decided to go straight from Cerulean City all the way to Celadon City to get my free level 25 Pokemon. If I got a good one, I'd be able to use someone other than Heracross and speed my way through the rest of the game. I got a Vulpix. Yeah, in hindsight, this was a major waste of time. I didn't really use Vulpix much in this run, and if I had just gotten Vulpix when I was planning on battling Erica anyway, I could have saved a few minutes in the time that I spent traveling between cities. I did use this opportunity though to get a Ducklet, which actually turned out to be pretty clutch for part of this game. So I got through the SSN as fast as I could, beat Lieutenant Surge's puzzle in less than a minute, and then after a quick 1, 2, 3, I was on my way not to Rock Tunnel, but to Celadon City again. Erica would be the easiest gym badge yet. Shuppet, Luvdisc, Cubone. Not only was I on a world record pace, but I had a 43-minute lead. The only way that I'd even come close to falling behind again was if I severely messed up or if I ran into some really bad luck. I'll let you guess which one happened in the meantime. But since we're about halfway into our challenge, I'd like to tell you about today's sponsor, Jesus! In Luke chapter 18 verse 27, he tells us, "The things which are impossible with men are possible with God." If you accept Jesus into your life, you're entering into a relationship with the Almighty Creator. We see what happens when we try to do everything ourselves. We fall short in practically every way. But when you put your trust in Jesus, You're able to do things you never thought possible because it's not your power. Jesus gives us strength to push our own boundaries and perform miracles, whether as large as moving a mountain or as little as taking care of your kids. Remember, we're only human. We're weak and feeble, but God isn't. I'd invite you today that if you haven't already, trust God with your life. Let Him work with you, and you'll be amazed by how much peace you'll have. Speaking of peace, I'm about to lose mine with what happens next. So now that I had the rainbow badge, I decided to get the Fly HM and head back to Cerulean City. I needed a bike to get to Fuchsia City, but also to save some time on my run. I'm going to let you know now that I didn't use my bike nearly as much as I should have, and that ended up putting me way further behind than I could have been. So I headed over to Lavender Town, defeated my rival, saved Mr. Fuji, and then went back to Celadon City so that I could get on Cycling Road. There was only one problem. Okay. No! I was like, oh crap, I need to go down, and then I hit the wrong button. This cue ball was an extremely unfortunate mistake. I'd been waiting until Fuchsia City to heal up because I thought that I could dodge all the trainers on Cycling Road, but I ended up not only battling with 3 HP, but he also had a Pelipper that knew Roost, which would make this my most annoying battle of the run. I would have been able to whittle down its HP and take it out, but I couldn't hurt it as fast as it could heal itself, and when I finally lost, I was all the way back in Lavender Town. And then I accidentally ran into another trainer immediately after that. Eventually though, I made it to Fuchsia City, beat the first 2 mandatory trainers in Koga's gym, but then I ran into, get this, a Ducklet that completely stopped me in my tracks. To put things in perspective, my 2 highest level Pokemon were weak to flying and water types, which meant that unless I wanted to grind up my other Pokemon a couple levels, I'd have to find something else. Luckily for me though, I just happened to be right next to the Safari Zone, and after getting the Golden Teach and the Surf HM, I decided to see what I could potentially add to my team. Let me tell you, this area had so many good options, but because it's the Safari Zone, catching them was a much different problem altogether. This place had Charizards, Absols, even Pikachus. But after 3.5 minutes of chucking Safari Balls, I ended up leaving with a Steelix and a Lyron. Not bad Pokemon by any means, but not exactly what would get me past the Ducklet in Koga's gym. Which I wouldn't even get to immediately because I accidentally stepped in front of yet another optional trainer. Finally though, I get the rematch with the Juggler. He starts off with that Ducklet, and it's here that I realize that Heracross is actually quad weak to flying type moves. Yet, for some bizarre reason, he switches out Ducklet for Lyron, which I easily take down with Bullet Seed. Now he has nothing left, and since I outspeed it, I got off another Night Slash and won the battle. Finally, I got to battle Koga. He started out with a Magmortar, and I realized how many Pokemon I have that are weak to fire types. And he outspeeds me. So I switched over to Lyron, and for some weird reason, he doesn't use anything but Confuse Ray. What makes me mad is his strategy actually almost worked, but all it took was a couple of takedowns, and I got to move on to his second Pokemon. I'm down Heracross, which sucks, but I still have a chance. He sends out a Cubone, I use my own Ducklet. 2 Pokemon left. He sends out Tympole, and he actually manages to take out the rest of my team. The good news, though, is that now I have a strategy. If I just start the match with Lyron, then I can keep my Heracross alive for the rest of his team. My plan works for the first Pokemon, and then I send out Ducklet to battle his Cubone. I'm just going to spoil things for you a little bit here. This is the last time I ever use my Ducklet. It had its uses earlier in the game, but I need some better party members. So I bring out Heracross, who easily beats the Cubone, and his Tympole. Unfortunately though, his last Pokemon is a Linoone who knows Play Rough, which one-shots me. I don't really know what else I can do, so I send out Steelix. I got a critical hit Rock Throw, and it did nothing. It uses Play Rough and actually does a lot of damage, even though I resist it. It then goes for a couple of Fury Swipes, and while it doesn't do a whole lot of damage, it does take a lot of time getting the attacks off. I should also mention that I ran into a lot of multi-hit moves in this run, and I wish I knew exactly how much extra time it added to the run, because it was actually a noticeable amount. Eventually, Koga manages to take out my Steelix, I go to Lyron, who gets a couple of takedowns off, but he's able to survive with just a sliver of HP left. Fortunately for me though, my Vulpix has exactly what I need, Quick Attack. And finally, I beat Koga. My 40-minute lead has just dropped to 4. I wasted so much time, and at this point, I'm wondering if I even have a chance anymore. I would have had a lot more confidence if it weren't for my team, all of which were incredibly underleveled. So on my way to Cinnabar Island, I battle this trainer right here while completely forgetting that this would send me to the Seafoam Islands. After wasting another 2 minutes though, I realize my mistake and get back on track. When I get to Cinnabar Island, the first thing I do is check my fossil Pokemon to see if it's any good, and it turns out to be an Exploud. Not exactly a Pokemon that would save my run. So I just bolt through the Pokemon Mansion as fast as I can, but while I'm in there, I decide to get this Sandshrew. And since I still have the rare candy from my PC in Pallet Town, I finally decide to use it here and get myself a Sandslash. Now it's time for me to go through the Cinnabar Gym. And for those of you who don't know already, if you want to skip the trainers, you have to pass a Pokemon quiz. Now naturally, after playing through this game 100 million times, it should be no problem, right? Well, you'd be right if the questions weren't worded so awkwardly. Like this question right here. Caterpie evolves into Butterfree. I said no, because Caterpie evolves into Metapod, but apparently that was wrong. There's another really awkward one later where it asks if 2 Pokemon of the same type and level are not the same. I ended up getting it right, but it was just because of sheer dumb luck. If I wasn't looking at the footage, I still wouldn't be able to tell you what the answer is. So I get to Blaine, and wouldn't you know it, he has a Chatot that knows Roost. I switch over from Heracross to Vulpix, mostly as fodder so that I can send out someone else without taking a hit, but it used Mimic and learned Energy Ball, which I taught Vulpix earlier. So Chatot basically just spams Fury Attack until I die. And then I send out Lyron, it uses Energy Ball, then one-shots my Lyron. At this point, I'm thinking there's nothing I can do. So I switch over to Steelix. It was still confused from Vulpix earlier. I used a Rock-type move, got a critical hit, and got past the Chatot. Honestly, not exactly worth celebrating in most situations, but when your best Pokemon is quad weak to Flying-type moves, and it knows Roost, knocking it out is a pretty big deal. His next Pokemon aren't a big deal. Teddiursa goes down fast, his Flygon goes down pretty easy, and his last Pokemon is Malamar, who's quad weak to Bug-type moves. At this point, I've been able to barely extend my lead, but then I realized that I still haven't gone through Silph-Co. I still have to beat my rival, Giovanni, and then Sabrina, which is doable, but I really can't make any mistakes. And it's here that I realized that I completely forgot to get the Strength HM when I was in Fuchsia City. So I already have some backtracking to do. So I get through Silph-Co relatively fast. Gary has basically nothing. The Rocket Grunt after him has a Zekrom, which is scary, but again, nothing I can't handle right now. Then there's Giovanni. I have moves that are super effective against 3 of his Pokemon, and his 4th is a Watchog. I got really close to beating it in 2 hits, but it survived off 1 HP and managed to get off 4 consecutive Hypnoses. So I switched over to Vulpix, used Quick Attack, and I'm on my way to Sabrina. I go into the gym and... would you know what? Completely forgot to heal. So I go all the way back to the Pokemon Center and waste almost a minute just doing that, but once I get to Sabrina, she turns out to be no problem. I now have less than a 6-minute lead, and my strongest Pokemon is only level 40. Oh well, nothing I can really do about that now. So next is the Viridian City Gym. I get past the 2 mandatory trainers and start battling the final gym leader. Luckily, he doesn't have anything that I really need to worry about. Something funny that happened though is that he had a Pidove who used Fissure and one-shot my Steelix. After that though, I brought in my Sandslash and finished it off. Now that I'd beaten the 8th gym, I had even less of a lead, so I couldn't run into any obstacles from here on out, which of course is foreshadowing because that's exactly what happens next. I go west to battle my rival, and he starts off with a level 47 Exploud. My Heracross doesn't know any fighting type moves, so I have nothing that's strong against it. So Heracross goes down after bringing it to like 1 HP, and then I just have my Vulpix use Quick Attack to finish it off. What happened next though made my heart drop into my butt. This man had a freaking level 45 Moltres. I also come to find out that it knows Roost. Yeah, this challenge is looking pretty impossible at this point. I would have to beat my rival, who hopefully wouldn't have any other strong Pokemon, get through Victory Road, beat the Elite Four, and then get through my rival again, all within the span of an hour. Again, my 3 strongest Pokemon are a level 41 Heracross, a level 37 Sandslash, and a level 28 Steelix. There's no way I could actually do it. So this is where I decided to just give up and hopefully get a world record another time. Until I remembered that all things are possible through Jesus. After losing a second time, I came up with a strategy. It was a long shot, but I still had a chance. I started off with Sandslash so that I could save my Heracross for his Moltres. He'd easily be able to one-shot me, but I at least stood a chance doing it this way. My Sandslash survived without taking a hit from the X-Cloud, but it went down very quickly once the Moltres came out. I then switched out my Heracross, who did even less to it than my Sandslash did. Fortunately, it went for Fire Spin. I switched over to Vulpix, confused it, switched back to Heracross, it hit itself twice in confusion, used Agility, hit itself again in confusion, and I finished it off with a Night Slash. I could not believe what just happened. I couldn't celebrate yet though. It still had 4 other Pokemon that I needed to beat. But again, I lucked out by one-shotting his next 3 Pokemon and not getting hit by his Sandslash at the very end. I only had 1 hour left to beat the rest of the game, but at this point, it was possible again. So I get into Victory Road, and almost immediately, I find a wild level 41 Moltres. Oh my goodness, if I can catch one of these, my luck would instantly turn around. I don't have anything that'll put it to sleep though, so I just chuck Pokeballs at it and hope that something works. Unfortunately, all I ended up doing is wasting 2 minutes and coming away with nothing, so I decided to wait until after I clear Victory Road before actually trying to catch more Pokemon. I'm still going to try and catch Pokemon though. I mean, believe me, there's no theoretical universe where I beat the Elite Four with my current team. But I first needed to make sure that if I white out, I'll wind up back at Indigo Plateau rather than Viridian City. So finally, I make it to Indigo Plateau with only about 50 minutes left in my challenge. I decided to get 10 Great Balls, and that's it. That's all I have to catch everything that I need to beat the Elite Four with. I go back into Victory Road, and by using a Max Repel, I managed to block out all the Pokemon in here that aren't at least as high level as my Heracross. The first Pokemon I run into is a level 45 Charizard, and I'm practically salivating for this thing. It knocks out my first 2 Pokemon, but then I get the exact luck I was hoping for and catch the Charizard. Now that I have at least 1 good Pokemon other than my Heracross, I decide to start moving towards the main event, my level 50 randomized Moltres encounter. What I didn't expect though was to run into a level 43 Zekrom. Forget literally everything I said in the past 2 minutes. I needed to dedicate 100% of my resources to catching this thing. I don't even bother lowering its HP. I know that it's going to take luck to catch it, so I just start chucking Great Balls at it. It takes down my Heracross, which isn't great, but I bring out my Steelix, and after a couple of Great Balls, I actually caught it. I suddenly had a level 43 Zekrom on my team. My hope was picking up so fast, but I still wanted to see what my level 50 random encounter was going to be. Finally, I get to where it's at, I talk to it, and it's a Tympole. Obviously underwhelming, but honestly, I could probably make this work. What makes this even better is that I catch it with 1 Great Ball, and then I can dig my way out of there. I also forgot to mention earlier, but the CEO of Silphco actually gave me a rare candy instead of a Master Ball, which I decide to use here to at least evolve my Tympole. Here's the team I'm running with. A level 41 Heracross, level 28 Steelix, level 38 Sandslash, level 43 Zekrom, level 45 Charizard, and a level 51 Palpitoad. I can mess up against Lorelei once, maybe twice, but that's it. Otherwise, I only get 1 shot to beat the entire Elite Four and my rival. So I decide to lead with Zekrom, and Lorelei starts out with Litwick. I go for Thunderbolt, it goes for Nightshade, and I go for another Thunderbolt. First one down. Next, she sends out Mightyena, to which I respond by sending out my Heracross. Oh, remember that one really unique way that my run was taking longer than it should have? Well, you know how I named myself A to shorten the amount of characters on the screen, right? Well, All of Heracross' moves have at least 10 characters, and 2 of his moves are multi-hit moves. I can't complain since they helped me get here, but I can't help but wonder how much time I would have saved if I had had different Pokemon for most of the game. So, as you can see, I easily took out the Mightyena and Deerling, and I sent out Charizard to battle her Beartick. And you know Flamethrower, right? You don't know Flamethrower? Okay, well, guess we're going with Slash then. I was hoping I'd be able to make Slash work, but as it turned out, her Beartick knew Blizzard, and almost one-shot my Charizard. There was still a chance, and nope, never mind. It knew Rest. Are you freaking kidding me? I ran into 2 Pokemon with Roost that nearly ruined my game, and now this Beartick knows both Blizzard and Rest? I'm done. I've lost. GG, Lorelei. I tried using Smokescreen in anticipation of it using Blizzard, but it hit with its 2nd consecutive Blizzard. So I switched back to my Heracross, and yep, it went for another Rest. Yep, I have no strategy for beating her Beartick. I'm literally just waiting for her to body my team so I can be done with this challenge. In a last-ditch effort, I switched over to my Zekrom, and wouldn't you know it, she hit me with a 3rd straight Blizzard after a Smokescreen. Back to Heracross. Will Night Slash work? Nope. And it goes for another Rest. Just what do you do? What do you do? If you're me in this situation, just what do you do? The worst part is, once I go back to Heracross, it uses nothing but Rest. And I don't know if you guys know this, but in Gen 1, I don't know if it's different in 721, but in Gen 1, they do not run out of PP, so it can just rest as much as it stinking wants. It will never run out of rests. So not only can I not kill this thing, but it's stalling me out. I can't even lose and try again with another strategy. Finally, I realize I don't have a choice, so I revive my Charizard, wait for it to fall asleep, I switch over to Charizard, and I just spam Smokescreen. Then when it wakes up, I switch back to Heracross and do it all over again. This battle was complete agony. But you know what? I revived my Zekrom, I switched over, it missed 3 straight Blizzards, and I finally beat it. Then her last Pokemon is a Cleffa. I'm so happy that I can be done with her and move on. It knew Blizzard. I mean, it didn't amount to much, but it knew Blizzard. Next battle. So up next is Bruno, who ironically starts off with Conkeldurr. I go for Slash, it goes for Bide, I switched over to Heracross, and after stalling it out, I go for an Aerial Ace, it misses Rock Throw, and I finish it off with another Aerial Ace. Easy so far. Next are Chinchou, Floette, and Timber. This is exactly what I need to keep my run alive. It's on life support, but believe me, it's alive. Finally, he sends out Marshtomp, and my Palpitoad actually comes out pretty clutch on this one. I managed to beat Bruno in 3.5 minutes. As I go up against Agatha, I'm hoping for more of the same. Her first Pokemon is Caracosta, which I knocked out in one hit. Next, she used Lampet, which I almost one-shot, but thankfully she didn't go for a Fire-type move, and I managed to knock it out with the next hit. Next, she used Durant, and I switched over to Charizard. My mentality was that a Bug Steel-type wouldn't be able to do much against a Fire Flying type, but it had Crunch, so it wasn't something I'd automatically run away with. I went for a Fly, and would you believe it? She switched over to Conkeldurr just before Fly lands. Unfortunately, it did do a lot of damage with its next attack, but still, Charizard took out the Conkeldurr first, and then the Durant. Finally, her last Pokemon was a Skorupi, and I just finished it off with Zekrom. All I had left were Lance and Gary. At this point, my nerves were getting to me. This was it. It was official. I could not lose from here on out. Either I won out and got a world record, or I lost here and my run was over. There was no theoretical way I could lose and then try again before time expired. Time for Lance. His first Pokemon was a Swirlix, which would have been perfect for anyone other than my Dragon type. I switched over to Steelix and immediately got hit by an Energy Ball. So I switched over to Charizard, and it just kept spamming Light Screen. Next was a Furret, and guess what move it knew? Go ahead, guess! Luckily for me though, I was at least doing enough damage to it to where I could knock it out before it could cause an issue. After that was a Braviary, and a quick critical hit Thunderbolt was all it took. His fourth Pokemon was a Gloom. All I needed was a couple of pin missiles from Heracross. Only one Pokemon left. He sent out Granbull, I sent out Charizard. I really had no idea what it could do, so I spammed a bunch of smoke screens, and it didn't matter. What did matter though was that it went for Rage, and that was all I needed to get past Lance and make it to the champion. Only 20.5 minutes left. There were two ways I could lose this. If I lost, or if Gary stalled me out. If I needed anyone in the history of Pokemon to have an easy team, this was it. With how underleveled I was, all he needed was one good Pokemon to take out every member of my team and end what would have been a historic speedrun. It was finally time. Either I won here, or I lost everything. The battle started, and he sent out a Joltik. Perfect, exactly what I needed. A couple of slashes, and I was onto his next one. Swampert wouldn't be so easy, and with my nerves getting to me, I accidentally sent out my Charizard. I managed to survive a water gun, and then I sent out my Palpitoad before I ruined anything else. And by the grace of God, I got a Gen 1 miss. It went for another water gun. I went for Surf. Then, on the very next turn, I somehow outsped him and took out his Swampert with another Surf. Next was the scariest looking Pichu I've ever seen, and I decided to go with Zekrom. One slash was all it took, but I couldn't celebrate just yet. He sends out a Deerling, and he hits my Heracross with Double Edge. But I'm still living! Then, all I need is a Pin Missile to take it out. 4 down, 2 to go. He sends out another Granbull, I send out Charizard. I'm basically just going to spam Smokescreen like I did before, and then use Slash. I use up all of my slashes, finish the job with a Wing Attack, grow a level, and learn a move which I immediately replace Slash with. And finally, his last Pokemon is a Tynamo. I know I can't celebrate yet, but I'm practically jumping up and down on my chair. I go for Slash, but I don't quite knock it out in one hit. The only thing I have to worry about is if it knows some OP move that I didn't know about, and it goes for a Tackle. Then one more Slash, and I've done it! I beat my rival with 15 minutes to spare! Oh my goodness, I cannot tell you how happy I was after this rush of emotions. There were so many things in this run that went wrong, but also so many things that went right at the exact moment that I needed it. I made a whole bunch of mistakes, and I definitely think I can do better, but it would still depend on a lot of luck. And you know what? That's what I love about speedrunning this game. You can't plan ahead. All you can do is adapt to what's in front of you. While there's a lot of luck involved, there's also a lot of strategy to it too. Will this world record stand? I don't know. That's up for you guys to determine. I'll leave a link to the ROM hack I used and the rule set for this speedrun, and I'd encourage you guys to try it out for yourself. See if you can beat my time. Of course, all the glory goes to God, and while getting through a game really fast might not mean much in the grand scheme of things, just knowing there's a creator who's got your back in the little things in life makes doing things like this worth it. If you haven't yet, I'd invite you to learn more about Jesus. He loves you, and all he wants is to be with you, in this life and the next. Of course, hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you again in the next one.